The feeling on a university campus right before graduation, it's usually buzzing, right? Just this real sense of achievement everywhere.
Absolutely. Pure excitement.
But at Harvard, just days, literally days before commencement, that whole atmosphere has been kind of clouded by something entirely.
Yeah, a real wave of uncertainty, especially hitting their international students hard.
It's so significant. Harvard even put out a statement online. They said, without its international students, Harvard is not Harvard.
That really says something. And what's striking is just how fast this all happened and the force behind it.
Definitely. So today we're diving into this breaking news. The Trump administration revoking Harvard's ability to enroll foreign students, and Harvard hitting back immediately with a federal lawsuit.
It's a major clash. We've been looking at reports from BBC News, NBC, Boston, AP News, trying to piece together what's going on.
Exactly. Our mission here is to give you a clear picture of what happened, what each side is arguing, and what the, potential fallout could be, trying to cut through the noise a bit.
And the scale here is pretty massive. We're talking about, around 800 international students?
Yeah, something like that. Over 27% of the entire student body, so a huge chunk.
A really vital part of the university. And their futures, Harvard's operations too, are suddenly up in the air.
Okay, before we really unpack all the details of this fast-moving situation, just a quick heads up for you.
Oh, yeah.
If you're looking to get skilled up in AI, our friends over at rajamanikam.com have a special offer.
Good to know.
Yeah, use the coupon code QPT, just Q-PTT, when you check out for a discount on their AI. Okay, right. Let's get into the specifics now, starting with the administration's move. What exactly happened?
Well, the first step came from the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. They essentially revoked Harvard's certification for the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, SEVP, they call it.
SEVP, right. And that's the program that lets universities bring in international students on certain visas.
Exactly. It's a government system that authorizes them to enroll students with specific non-immigrant statuses, like F or J visas.
And this wasn't some quiet internal memo either. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, she went public with it, didn't she?
Oh, yeah. Very public. On X, formerly Twitter, she said it was because of Harvard's, quote, failure to adhere to the law. She even threw in a warning, sort of jesting other universities might be next.
Wow. Okay. So sending a message. What are the immediate consequences then of losing this SC?
Well, they're pretty severe. For the 2025-2026 academic year, Harvard just won't be able to enroll new students who need those F or J visas.
F visas for academic study, J for exchange visitors, scholars, that kind of thing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So it hits prospective students hard. But also, think about the current students on those visas. They're now facing this possibility of having to transfer somewhere else just to stay legally in the U.S.
That's incredibly disruptive. Imagine being close to finishing your degree.
Right. And suddenly having to uproot everything. The reports also mentioned a really tight deadline Harvard was given.
Yeah, I saw that. Something like 72 hours.
Just 72 hours, yeah. An ultimatum, basically, to meet a list of demands if they wanted any chance of getting that SEVT status back quickly.
Okay, 72 hours. What were they demanding? It sounds pretty intense.
It does. They wanted all disciplinary records for non-immigrant students going back 5 full years.
5 years of disciplinary records.
And maybe even more significantly, they demanded electronic records, specifically mentioned video and audio.
Video and audio of what?
Of what the DHS termed illegal and dangerous or violent activity by these international students on campus. It's quite vaguely worded.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly broad and potentially raises some serious privacy concerns. So how did Harvard react to this move and these demands?
Swiftly and very strongly. They immediately put out statements calling the whole thing unlawful and a blatant violation of the law.
And the university president, Alan Garber, his language was pretty forceful too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He called it an unlawful and unwarranted action. He framed it very clearly as retaliation because Harvard wouldn't, give up its academic independence under government pressure.
Retaliation, okay.
He explicitly said it was the government making an illegal assertion of control over our curriculum, our faculty, and our student body. Strong words.
And they didn't just issue statements. They went straight to court.
They did. Filed a lawsuit in federal court right there in Boston. The core argument is that the government's action violates the First Amendment, among other things, and will have a, quote, devastating effect.
Devastating, not just for the university, but for the students themselves. How many did they say? Over 7,000?
Yeah, over 7,000 visa holders potentially affected. The scale is just immense.
And the lawsuit really leans into how crucial these students are for Harvard, doesn't it?
It really does. There's a line in the filing, something like, with the stroke of a pen, the government has sought to erase a quarter of Harvard's student body. International students who contribute significantly to the university and its mission. And then they repeat that line we heard earlier. Without its international students, Harvard is not Harvard.
So they're drawing a clear line in the sand. Are they asking the court for immediate help?
Yes, they're seeking a temporary restraining order, a TRO, basically asking the judge to hit pause on the DHS revocation while the court case proceeds.
Okay, trying to stop it before it takes full effect.
And importantly, Harvard also directly pushed back on one of the administration's justifications. They stated clearly that they did respond to DHS requests for information as the law required.
So a direct contradiction there. The administration says they failed to comply. Harvard says they did. That sounds like it'll be a key point in...
Definitely seems central to the dispute.
Okay, so let's look at the administration's side more closely. Why are they saying they took this, well, really drastic step? What's their stated justification?
The main reasons the Trump administration has given publicly are centered on allegations about anti-Semitism on campus. They claim Harvard hasn't done enough to fight it.
Okay, anti-Semitism concerns.
And also that the university needs to change its practices regarding hiring and admissions.
Are these general complaints or are there specific accusations?
There are some pretty specific and serious accusations. The administration claims Harvard created an unsafe environment by allowing, their words, anti-American, pro-terrorist agitators to assault Jewish students.
That's a very strong claim.
Extremely strong. And there's another one that's, well, potentially even more damaging.
Let me guess, the alleged China connection.
That's the one. The administration is alleging that Harvard coordinated with the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP.
Coordinated how?
They claim Harvard hosted and even trained members of a Chinese paramilitary group, apparently as recently as 2024.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge accusation. How does Harvard respond to specifics?
Harvard has strongly denied all of it, just flat-out denials.
And President Garber, did he address these themes?
He did. He acknowledged that the university has made changes to its governance, including putting together a strategy specifically to combat anti-Semitism. But he was also very firm.
Firm in what way?
He stated that Harvard would not compromise on its core legally protected principle just because of this pressure. Essentially, they see these demands as overreach.
So it really highlights this fundamental tension, doesn't it, between, government oversight and the independence of universities?
Absolutely. That seems to be at the heart of it.
Let's shift focus now to the people most directly impacted this. What are we hearing about the effect on them and on the university more broadly?
Well, the immediate effect on the current international students is just chaos, really. Lots of confusion, fear, frustration, and just deep uncertainty about whether they can even stay in the U.S. after graduation.
Yeah, you can only imagine. Have we heard directly from any student?
We have. The news reports included some quotes. There was Sarah Davis, a grad student from Australia. She talked about the confusion, the lack of clarity about what this means for working in the U.S., especially right before graduation.
Great, the timing is just brutal.
And another student, Leo Gurdon, an undergraduate from Sweden, he put it quite starkly. He said international students feel like poker chips in a political game.
Chips.
Yeah, and he called the whole situation incredibly dehumanizing.
That really hits home.
Yeah.
It puts a human face on this whole legal fight. And it's not just individuals, right? The actual academic programs must be too.
For sure. The report specifically mentioned worries about graduate schools, where international students make up a huge percentage. Like the Harvard Kennedy School, nearly half international.
Almost half. Wow.
And Harvard Business School, about a third international. Losing the ability to admit new students there would be a massive disruption. And it obviously affects anyone planning to start this summer or fall.
And thinking longer term, this could really hurt Harvard's reputation globally, couldn't it, in attracting talent?
That's a major concern they raised in the lawsuit. The worry is that top students and scholars from around the world might now hesitate to apply to Harvard, fearing more government action or instability.
Makes sense. Why risk getting caught up in something?
Exactly. Plus, Harvard argues that if this revocation isn't overturned, the rules mean they wouldn't be able to reapply for SEVP certification for a year, effectively blocking new international admissions for at least 2 academic years.
2 whole years. That would definitely put them at a disadvantage compared to other top global universities.
A significant one.
And, this whole situation, it doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It seems like part of a bigger picture, doesn't it?
It really does seem that way. This action against Harvard fits into a pattern we've seen of the government targeting Harvard and other sort of elite universities.
Over what kinds of issues?
Well, there's been ongoing pressure about how these universities handle pro-Palestinian activism on campus. and also claims that they discriminate against conservative viewpoints.
And Harvard specifically has clashed with this administration before, right?
Oh, definitely. We've talked about it before in here. The administration previously froze, what was it, $2.2 billion in federal funding for Harvard?
That's right, a huge amount.
And even threatened to go after their tax-exempt status. That funding freeze also ended up in court, with Harvard suing.
And beyond Harvard, haven't there been wider attempts to change rules for international students generally?
Yes, there have been broader policy moves by the Trump administration aimed at tightening rules around individual student visas. It caused a lot of confusion and anxiety on campuses nationwide.
Leading to more lawsuits, I imagine.
Exactly. The reports even mentioned a different case, I think in California, where a court actually blocked the administration from automatically canceling students' legal status while these policy fights were ongoing.
So when President Garber previously talked about the government trying to regulate Harvard's intellectual conditions, that quote seems really relevant now.
It certainly resonates in this context.
Yeah.
Harvard is painting this current action, the SEVP revocation, not as a regulatory issue, but squarely as retaliation.
Retaliation for defying, as they see it, the White House's political demands.
That's their argument, yes.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up then. Let's summarize the key takeaways from this deep dive. It's been a lot to cover.
Yeah, it's complex. But at its core, you have the Trump administration pulling Harvard's authorization to enroll international students. Their stated reasons focus on alleged failures regarding anti-Semitism, plus hiring and admissions practices.
Right. And Harvard's response.
A strong denial of all those allegations. They're calling the administration's move unlawful retaliation. Plain and simple. They filed a federal lawsuit arguing it's unconstitutional and will be devastating, especially for their thousands of international students, and that it violates their academic freedom.
A major clash with potentially huge consequences. So as you think about everything we've discussed, here's something to maybe mull over. What does this conflict really tell us about the balance of power, or maybe the shifting balance between the federal government and major academic institutions like Harvard?
That's a big question. And related to that, how could the outcome here, whatever it is, impact the future of international education in the U.S. overall? The whole global flow of talent and ideas.
It's definitely questions worth considering as the situation develops.
Oh, sure.
And just one final reminder before we go, for anyone interested in boosting their AI knowledge, check out the course at rajamanickam.com. That's RAJAMANICKAM.com, and use the code QPT for that listener discount.
QPT.
Got it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the unfolding situation at Harvard.